Wellness for Life is brought to you by Back in Motion Physical Therapy, Gothenburg Chiropractic Clinic, Mahabi Atwa Community Action Partnership, Lakeside Sports and Pain Clinic, and Thomason, Swanson, and Zahn Attorneys at Law.
Hello, I'm Matthew Koffenberg, a physical therapist and owner of Back in Motion Physical Therapy in Perham, Minnesota. Today we are going to conclude what has turned out to be a three-part series on the rotator cuff. The first part of this series was about the anatomy and the function of the rotator cuff. So just as a really quick review, this is the shoulder joint. Remember, it's this ball and socket joint. We have a very large deltoid muscle. So that's, when you look at somebody and you see this large muscle on the shoulder, that is the deltoid muscle. And then underneath the deltoid, we have 4 rotator cuff muscles. Now, the rotator cuff muscles are very small, but there are 4 of them. So remember, this large deltoid sits over the top of the rotator cuff, but we have 4. We've got the supraspinatus, we have the infraspinatus, and we have the teres minor, and then over here we have what's called the subscapularis. Those make up the rotator cuff. Now remember, the job of the rotator cuff is to help the deltoid elevate our arm. If we didn't have a rotator cuff, if you just kind of look at the mechanics, if the deltoid contracted alone without the rotator cuff, the only thing that would happen is the arm bone would just go straight up. So what that would look like if I were to try to raise my arm and I didn't have a cuff, it would just look like that. It would just be like I'm shrugging my shoulder. That's what would happen if the deltoid worked without the cuff. So the rotator cuff pulls this arm bone in towards the socket and down. So when you go in and down, it allows the deltoid to function properly and get me to raise my arm up in the air. So we also have talked about the importance of the rotator cuff in terms of injury. About 60% of us, by the time we're 60, about 60% of us will actually have some sort of cuff injury, most likely a rotator cuff tear that at times requires surgery. So it's really important that we think about the cuff, that we do everything we can to prevent injury of the rotator cuff. So in part 2 of this 3-part series, we talked about a very beginning program for rotator cuff strengthening, and we gave 3 exercises. And I would encourage you all to go and look at those. They're very simple exercises that can be done at home without any equipment. Anybody can do them. And it's a really good program to just do 3, 4, 5 times a week. Today we're going to talk about more of an advanced program for the rotator cuff. Now this would be for people who are really quite active, people who like to swim a lot, people who play baseball, people who throw a lot, people who might do some rock climbing, but they're really active in using their arms a lot. So the beginning program is great for pretty much most of us. But if you do want a little bit more of an advanced program and you are a high-level athlete or doing a lot of activity, you'll want to do these 4 exercises. So we'll just talk quickly about 4 exercises. They're all done with a large piece of rubber band. We call it TheraBand. There are 2 things to think about with the TheraBand just for protection. When you have your TheraBand, before you use it, you always want to inspect the TheraBand, because every once in a while you can get some slight nicks in that TheraBand, and if there's a nick in it, it could potentially break, and if it breaks, it might snap back at you. So you always want to look at the TheraBand first before you use it. And then I do recommend that you, because it may snap, it's always a good idea to wear some sort of protective eyewear. All I have today is sunglasses, so we're inside, so I'm going to wear some sunglasses. But when we use the TheraBand, you just want to protect your eyes. Okay, so the 4 exercises quickly. So the first one that you'll want to do, the TheraBand is going to be attached to something. You're going to get into a nice athletic position. Your arm is going to be out extended. The wrist is going to be about shoulder height, holding on to the TheraBand. You're going to start with your palm down. You're then going to bring the arm out to the side. As you go out to the side, you're going to rotate your arm so the palm is facing up. And then you bring it back to the starting position. Palm down to palm up. You'll notice my elbow stays straight the whole time. And the wrist stays at shoulder level the whole time. You want to do 2 sets of 25, 3 to 5 times per week. The arm should feel very tired and very fatigued when you're done. You should not have pain. If you have any pain, you need to stop. The second exercise for the rotator cuff, same position that you started in with the first one, but this one is just a simple row. Just bring the arm straight back. Bend the elbow to a 90-degree angle. Bring the elbow to about the level of your chest. And just go back and forth. Again, 2 sets of 25. The final two that you will do is you use the band and you actually step on one end of the band. Secure it nicely by putting your foot directly on the entire band. The first one that you do is your arm stays straight. The thumb is going to be pointed upward. You do not want the thumb pointing down towards the floor. You want the thumb pointing up. And you just bring the arm up to shoulder height. So it starts here and it ends at shoulder height. And again, you do 2 sets of 25. And then the final one, we call it a military press. Elbow is bent, and then you bring it above shoulder height. Okay, so those two are somewhat similar. The first one, remember, you only go to shoulder height. And the second one, you're going above shoulder height. That concludes our 3-part series on the rotator cuff. If you have any pain during it, please stop and call me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me. 218-346-2464.
Thank you for watching Wellness for Life. Brought to you by Back in Motion Physical Therapy, Gothenburg Chiropractic Clinic, Mahabi Atwa Community Action Partnership, Lakeside Sports and Pain Clinic, and Thomason, Swanson & Zahn Attorneys at Law.